So today we're going to talk about chain grinders, more specifically this old Dolmar chain grinder. With the assistance of a person off OPE forum, I was able to identify this grinder was manufactured before the Dolmar factory had moved in around 1970, dating this grinder somewhere between, I believe, 1966 and 1969 as its actual manufacture. All in all, it's nothing really special. It's a pretty rudimentary chain grinder from modern standards, but I did find it interesting. We get a basic cast alloy base. This grinder is extremely heavy for what it is. There's a single rear pivot in the back that allows it to tilt up and down. It moves through a fixed plane of 60 degrees. The handle is up the front here at the top, and we just move that straight down. It doesn't pivot side to side. There's no ability to tilt the base or anything like that. It is very, very basic. If we move to the other side, over here we get our basic controls. We have this big knurled nut on the back, or bolt with a knob on it, and a locking nut, and that controls our grinder's depth, so how far it can come down. Here we have a switch for changing rotation, so it can run clockwise and anti-clockwise. The reasoning for doing that is it allows you to constantly grind into the tooth. It reduces the burr that's left behind when grinding. Anyone who's used a grinder has probably seen that burr. They can be quite severe. It saves just going around and cleaning them off. Generally, it's not done on more modern grinders because when you put it in reverse, you'll throw the sparks back to the operator. With this, it doesn't matter because it's just 90 degrees to us either direction it's going. When we move around the front here to the clamp, it's a pretty basic clamp. We can adjust it with the two bolts. There is a shim in between it. Our locking mechanism is very basic. We only have 3 angles marked on it. It's 35 degrees, right, left, and a center. The thing to remember with this grinder is when it was manufactured, the predominant type of chain it would have been made for is sharpening chipper chain. 3/8 semi-chisel come around in about 1963. So it would have been around, but it was in its infancy. Most of the chains that were sharpened by this grinder were realistically larger sizes. It would have been 404s and half inches and things like that. All the old sizes are no longer used. While it's pretty basic, it can still do a decent job. The only way we have of controlling the actual finished shape is the way that the wheel is shaped and the depth that we stop it at. So as far as grinding wheels go for it, it has a smaller center arbor and it cannot use the current Taconic Oregon style wheels. The center arbor size suits the USG wheels, however, the wheels are too big. I had to reduce the outer radius by about 20 mil to make it fit inside the guard. There's more than likely a wheel that actually fits this, but for the sake of ease of use and price, it was easier to just go and buy the USG wheels from a local dealer and then just modify them to suit. I have the full selection of wheels for it. I have no idea why. Something this grinder actually absolutely excels at is doing depth gauges. When you're doing depth gauges, the chain sits just nice and square on. The 125 mil USG depth gauge wheel fits on it perfectly, and the angle it comes down on makes it really, really easy. Very good for shaping and adjusting depth gauges. I've never really looked into the history of chain grinders. My only real knowledge about any history of chain grinders is I was able to find an article from an Australian forestry industry group in 1951, where they explained the process of using gullet grinders, which is something that's used in a sawmill for sharpening the big circular blades. They provided instructions on how to use those gullet grinders to sharpen scratcher tooth chains at the time. In 1952 or 1953, they had another article updating some of that advice on how to use those gullet grinders for sharpening chipper-style chains that were starting to come around. So there's nothing particularly special about this. It has a bit of interesting history to me. I'm a big fan of the Dolmar stuff, so it's kind of cool to find anything Dolmar branded. And a Dolmar branded grinder that was this age, it's kind of interesting to me. There's no specific need to go out and try and find one of these things. They don't do anything better or worse than a modern grinder. The only real advantage it has over most of the more modern grinders to me is the rear hinge. There's no movement in it at all. The motor shaft runs nice and straight. Everything's put together properly. I've had some bad experiences with the cheaper Oregon knockoff style grinders where there's a lot of wheel run out due to the shafts being slightly bent or it being drilled and tapped slightly off center. Well, I got it out. I've just got this crappy old, it's a still 36 RM, so it's a 3/8 semi chisel. I throw in that in there. This is the very old style of it before they updated it in the mid-90s. It has a larger corner radius. It has a different cutter tooth. Pretty much the entire geometry of the chain is different. There's no heel clearance. It's got a different depth gauge. It's nothing really at all like the modern RMs that we purchase now. But it's a piece of crap of a chain. It's been sharpened in about 30 different ways by the looks, possibly by someone who was blindfolded and then spun in a circle and given a file. I'm just going to go through and clean it up. I can use this thing for something. It'll get used for some crap cutting job where I don't want to ruin a chain. I'll just show the process of it. Something you'll notice when I'm doing this, and it's a problem with a lot of modern grinders as well, until you set up the vices correctly, and it does allow the tooth to rock back in certain situations. I'm going to be removing a lot of cutter. You're going to see it rock back, and I've got to push it down. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. The other thing worth mentioning with this grinder is the way the chain stop works. It sits on the opposite side's cutter following the one you are doing. So this is the one that would be ground. You see it coming down onto that. That's where the chain stop sits. That's a little different to most of the grinders you see around. I'll turn it on, have a go. You guys can watch it up close. You can see it all going horribly wrong. There you go. You can see it. It's gone all the way across out there. Decent result. Look at it from the inside. Yeah, we've got some top plate cutting angle. Our corner's sticking out a little bit more so we can grab hold of something. From the outside, we can see it. We've got that little bit of cut in under that top plate down to the corner. We're looking at it from right down. It looks almost vertical. As we come up around that transition into the top, you can see it sticking out a bit more on the point. Nice and clean through the outside there. Doesn't really leave much of a burr due to being able to grind in the right direction with the chain. It does an okay job. But yeah, that's just a basic overview of this thing. I thought I'd show it because I think it's kind of cool. Hopefully other people like it too. Also gives you an idea of where chain grinders sort of come from. They become a bit more advanced over the years. I've used it predominantly with semi-chisel chains. I don't think I've tried grinding a chisel on it. It would probably work. Trying to set it up and getting that wheel shape correct for it would be probably somewhat of a pain in the ass. But yeah, that's a basic overview of a 1960s era Dolmar grinder, something that would have been in a workshop for sharpening chains back in the day. If anyone else has one of these and has any more information on it, that would be awesome. I'm looking for a manual or something like that. But I was able to get information from a former employee of Dolmar in Germany who was able to give me the approximate build date, which was fantastic. So that'll do for this week. Nothing technical in that one, just an old orange bit of equipment.